So there's Captain Jake Mercer, floating through the armpit of the galaxy in a cargo hauler held together by duct tape, prayer, and what he's pretty sure is crystallized coffee spills. The ship's name is the Rusty Compass, which is less a clever metaphor and more an accurate description. Jake's current job? Hauling 15 tons of synthetic fertilizer to a farming colony that probably doesn't even know he's coming. Glamorous stuff. He's 3 days into a 2-week route, surviving on instant noodles and the kind of boredom that makes you reconsider every life choice that led you here when the distress beacon pings. It's faint, scratchy, like someone's screaming for help through a pillow made of static. The source? Frostfall 7. That's the frozen moon currently sitting on everyone's avoid-at-all-costs list. There's a reason for that. Actually, there are about 40 reasons, and they all involve dying in creative ways. Absolutely not, says Gleep from his station near the environmental controls. Gleep's his crewmate, a gelatinous slug-looking alien with 7 eyes arranged in a semicircle around his head like a very judgmental crown. I recognize that look, human. That is your bad idea look. Oh, I don't have a bad idea look, Jake says, already pulling up the coordinates. You have exclusively a bad idea look. Your face only makes that expression. I have never seen another one. The distress signal's automated, looping every 90 seconds. Standard galactic emergency protocol, which means someone hit the big red button before things went sideways. Jake runs it through the decoder. It's coming from Research Station Echo, a tiny outpost that's supposed to be studying ice formation or atmospheric phenomena or something equally thrilling. The Galactic Council already sent a rescue ship, Gleep says, his eye stalks drooping in what Jake has learned to recognize as exasperation. They turned back. Do you know why they turned back? Bad catering? Atmospheric complications. Jake snorts. That's code for it looked scary. It is scary. The temperature is minus 180 degrees. The atmosphere is 60% methane. There are indigenous predators that consider starship holes a dietary suggestion. Gleep's doing that thing where all 7 eyes focus on Jake at once, which is unsettling even after 2 years of partnership. The council classified it as an acceptable loss. Acceptable loss. Jake's already plotting a course correction. What'd they lose? Gleep sighs, which sounds like air escaping from a deflating balloon. According to the official report, the research team evacuated during a station malfunction. They left behind 3 juvenile Kragoth in one of the holding bays. The station's heating system failed. The council estimates survival probability at 0.003%. Am I left kids behind? They are not children. They are Kragoth cubs, essentially space bear wolves the size of your entertainment center, with more teeth. Still kids. Jake's already running pre-flight calculations. The Rusty Compass groans in protest, which is its normal state of being. How long until the station's completely dead? The backup power will fail in approximately 19 hours. Then the temperature inside will match the temperature outside, and those cubs will freeze solid in under 4 minutes. Gleep starts oozing toward the back of the ship. I am going to pack my belongings now, because I assume we are about to do something catastrophically stupid and I prefer to have my affairs in order. We're not doing anything catastrophically stupid. You are doing something catastrophically stupid, and I am merely present to witness it. This is an important distinction for the inevitable inquiry. Jake pulls up the scans of Frostfall 7. It looks exactly like the kind of place you'd expect to be named Frostfall. All ice, razor-sharp mountain ranges, and swirling storms that could peel paint off a hull at 50 kilometers. The research station's a tiny blip near the equator, which on this moon means it's only horrifically deadly instead of instantly fatal. The Galactic Council's official rescue vessel has military-grade shields and atmospheric processors. Gleep calls from the back. We have a cargo hauler that once lost a door mid-slight. Do you remember that? I remember that. I had to hold my breath for 7 minutes. You don't breathe. It is the principle of the thing. Jake's already committed. The thing about humans that makes the rest of the galaxy nervous is that they're really, really bad at accepting acceptable losses. Some species can do the math, weigh the odds, make the smart choice. Humans look at the math, say, yeah, but what if though, and then do something that makes insurance adjusters cry. 3 cubs, alone, freezing, because adults with fancy ships and official protocols decided it was too inconvenient. Gleek, Jake says, what we've got for cold weather gear. There's a long pause. Then, 1 emergency thermal blanket, standard issue. Rated for temperatures down to minus 40. So not nearly enough. Not even remotely enough, not in the same conceptual neighborhood as enough. Great, Jake punches in the final course corrections. The rusty compass shudders, complains, and slowly turns toward Frostfall 7. Guess we'll improvise. This is why humans have a reputation, Cleet mutters, returning to the cockpit with a duffel bag that presumably contains his entire life. This exact behavior. This is why, when species join the Galactic Council, they receive a handbook titled Humans, What to Expect. Chapter 1 is They Will Surprise You. Chapter 2 is They Will Horrify You. Chapters 3 through 12 are just, Why are they like this, in different fonts. Jake grins. You love it. I tolerate it because you pay marginally above minimum wage and the food is adequate. The rusty compass lurches into its new heading, and somewhere in the distance, Frostfall 7 waits. Cold, deadly, full of predators and impossible odds. Exactly the kind of place where humans do their best work. Jake decides to do the responsible thing and contact the Galactic Rescue Coordination Center before he flies headfirst into a frozen death trap. Not because he's looking for permission, understand, but because he wants someone official to know exactly how badly they screwed up. Also, there's a small chance they have useful information. Very small. Microscopic, really. The communication channel crackles to life and a face appears on the view screen that can only be described as aggressively bureaucratic. Commander Thrix is a Vipsian, one of those bird-like aliens with feathers that shimmer in colors humans can't even process. He's wearing what looks like 17 different medals on his uniform, which Jake is pretty sure is 14 more than necessary for someone who coordinates from behind a desk. This is Captain Jake Mercer of the Rusty Compass, requesting information on the distress beacon from Research Station Echo. Thrix's beak clicks in what might be surprise or irritation. Probably irritation. Captain Mercer. That situation has been resolved through official channels. The rescue operation was postponed due to severe atmospheric complications and indigenous wildlife concerns. Postponed. Jake lets that word hang in the air like a bad smell. So, you're coming back? The Council has determined that a secondary rescue attempt would require resources better allocated to situations with higher probability outcomes. You're not coming back. The terminology is not important. What matters is that proper protocols were followed. The research team was successfully evacuated with 0 casualties. Except for the 3 cubs they left behind. Thrix does this thing with his head feathers, where they flatten against his skull. The Kragoth juveniles were research subjects. Their loss is regrettable but falls within acceptable parameters for field research complications. The paperwork has already been filed. Jake feels his jaw tighten. They're kids. They are apex predators that will grow to approximately 800 kilograms and possess bite force sufficient to crush titanium alloys. The adults are highly territorial and extremely aggressive during breeding season, which is now. The area surrounding the station currently has 7 adult Kragoth in a 3-kilometer radius. Thrix pulls up a holographic display showing heat signatures that look like angry red blobs surrounding a tiny blue dot. The initial rescue team was attacked twice during approach. 1 ship sustained hull damage. It is a miracle they extracted the research personnel without fatalities. So your official position is too hard, better luck next time. My official position is that Council resources are finite and some scenarios present unacceptable risk-reward ratios. The juvenile Kragoth are already experiencing advanced hypothermia. Even with immediate extraction, survival odds are negligible. The ethical choice is to minimize additional loss of life. Jake looks at Gleep, who has arranged all 7 eyes in what definitely reads as "I told you so." Then he looks back at Thrix. How long until the station's completely dead? Backup power will fail in approximately 18 hours and 40 minutes. Internal temperature will reach lethal levels 4 minutes after that. Thrix adjusts one of his medals. Captain Mercer, I understand you are human, and your species has certain emotional responses that other species find, shall we say, unusual. But this is not a scenario where determination overcomes physics. What did the research team say when they left? Did they try to take the cubs? Thrix's feathers ruffle. The station experienced a catastrophic heating system failure during a methane storm. The cubs were in a separate bay with a malfunctioning door lock. The team had approximately 11 minutes to evacuate before the main power grid collapsed. They made the only logical choice. Abel made the easy choice. Captain Mercer, I have reviewed your file. You have 3 official reprimands for unauthorized rescue operations, 2 for ignoring quarantine protocols, and 1 quite spectacular incident involving a cargo hold full of what you claimed were medical supplies, but were actually stolen livestock. You are precisely the kind of human that makes insurance underwriters quit their jobs. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week. It was not a compliment. Thrix leaned toward the screen, and his voice drops into what Jake assumes is supposed to be reasonable. I am telling you, as one captain to another, that Frostfall 7 will kill you. The cold will kill you. The Kragoth will kill you. The terrain will kill you. And when you are dead, those cubs will still freeze. And the only difference will be that I will have additional paperwork explaining why a human cargo hauler decided to commit elaborate suicide. Noted. I'm going to need the access codes for the research station. Thrix stares at him. All his head feathers stand straight up, which Jake has learned means absolute disbelief. You are going anyway. Yep. Despite everything I just said. Because of everything you just said, actually. See, you keep talking about acceptable losses and risk-reward ratios and paperwork, and all I'm hearing is that you left 3 kids to die because it was inconvenient. So yeah, I'm going. This is insanity. This is Tuesday. Sleep makes a sound like a dying accordion. It is actually Friday. Figure of speech, Gleep. Thrix does something complicated with his beak that might be their equivalent of rubbing their temples. I cannot stop you. The Galactic Council does not have authority over independent cargo vessels in unregulated space. However, I am formally noting that you were advised against this course of action, that you proceeded against expert counsel, and that your inevitable demise will be classified as misadventure rather than heroism. Cool. Access codes? There's a long pause. Then Thrix transmits a data packet. The research station uses standard galactic emergency protocol. These codes will get you into the external airlocks in the main bay. The Cubs are in Holding Bay 3. Captain Mercer, for what it is worth, I hope you prove me wrong. You and me both, buddy. The communication cuts out. Jake stares at the coordinates for Frostfall 7, now less than 6 hours away. Behind him, Gleep is doing that thing where he stress organizes his collection of exotic fungi. Ha, so, Gleep says, not looking up, what is the plan? Land near the station, walk in, get the Cubs, walk out. That is not a plan, that is a series of verbs connected by optimism. It's worked before. No, it has not. You have simply survived despite your plans, which is different. Correlation is not causation. Jake grins. The rusty compass rattles as it builds speed, hurtling toward a frozen moon, where everything wants to kill him and 3 Cubs are running out of time. Somewhere in the back of his head, a voice that sounds suspiciously like his flight instructor asks what the hell he thinks he's doing. Jake tells that voice the same thing he told Thrix. It's Tuesday. Or Friday. Whatever. 5.5 hours later, Jake's staring at Frostfall 7 through the viewport and seriously reconsidering every decision that led to this moment. The moon looks like someone took a ball bearing, dipped it in malice, and then sprinkled it with storms that could sandblast a mountain. Except instead of sand, it's frozen methane crystals traveling at approximately, you're gonna die, kilometers per hour. This is your last chance to turn around, Gleep says helpfully. I have calculated 17 different ways this kills you. Would you like to hear them in order of likelihood or creativity? Neither. Number 7 involves you slipping on ice and impaling yourself on your own equipment. I call it death by irony. I am simply saying that humans are statistically more likely to die from accidents than heroism, and this plan has both. The rusty compass shudders as it hits the outer atmosphere. Jake's running on manual control because the automated systems took one look at the approach vector and basically said, I didn't sign up for this. The descent is less graceful entry and more controlled falling with optimistic intentions. Research Station Echo appears on the scanners, a tiny cluster of prefab buildings, huddled against a cliff face like they're hoping nobody notices them. The problem is that nearby landing zone is 2 kilometers away, across terrain that looks like an ice demon's miniature golf course. The rusty compass wasn't built for precision landings. It was built for good enough landings, and even that's a stretch. Temperature reading is minus 173 degrees, Gleep announces. Our external temperature gauge has just committed suicide. I did not know instruments could do that, but apparently yours can. Jake's hands are steady on the controls, which is either confidence or denial. The ship drops through a methane storm that sounds like 1,000 angry cats with chainsaws. Something goes ping in a way that definitely wasn't in the manual. The landing zone is coming up fast, a relatively flat stretch of ice between 2 jagged ridges. Relatively flat turns out to mean only moderately lethal. The rusty compass hits hard, skids about 40 meters, and comes to rest at an angle that's going to make the return launch interesting. Jake runs through the post-landing checklist, which mostly consists of, Are we still alive? And is the ship still in one piece? We have landed, Gleep observes. I am updating my will. Jake's already suiting up. The cold weather gear consists of his regular flight suit, 2 extra jackets, a thermal liner that's rated for conditions absolutely nowhere near this, and a helmet that's fogging up already. He grabs the emergency thermal blanket from the supply locker. It's silver, crinkly, and about as substantial as a fancy burrito wrapper. This is your plan. Gleep is watching with all 7 eyes. A blanket? It's a thermal blanket. It is rated for -40 degrees. We are at -173 degrees. That is a difference of 133 degrees. Do you understand how numbers work? I also brought a plasma cutter. Jake holds up the tool, which is designed for cutting through doors, not fighting ice moon predators or physics. And these. He dumps a handful of protein bars into his pack. Protein bars. In case the cubs are hungry. They are carnivorous apex predators whose natural diet consists of creatures with exoskeletons and the occasional unwary researcher. So they'll appreciate the variety. Jake checks his oxygen supply. 4 hours, give or take. The trek to the station should take 40 minutes, each way if nothing goes wrong, which statistically means it'll take 3 hours and everything will go wrong. He's giving himself about 90 minutes at the station to cut through the door, wrangle 3 terrified cubs, and get them secured for transport. I'm staying with the ship, Gleep announces. Good call. When you die, I will wait 1 full day before filing the insurance claim. This is friendship. Appreciate it. Jake cycles through the airlock. The cold hits him like a physical force, like the universe itself is personally offended by his body temperature. His suit's heating elements kick in immediately and start losing the fight. The HUD in his helmet displays his core temperature, which is already dropping at a rate the suit describes as inadvisable. The landscape is beautiful in the way that guillotines are beautiful, all sharp edges and deadly elegance. The ice reflects the moonlight in colors that don't quite exist, and the wind sounds like it's singing a song about poor life choices. Jake starts walking. The station is a dark smudge against the cliff face, and between him and it is 2 kilometers of frozen nightmare. His boots crunch on ice that's probably older than human civilization. Every breath fogs his visor a little more. He makes it about 1 kilometer before he meets his first Kragoth. It appears from behind an ice formation like a very large, very angry magic trick. 800 kilograms of muscle, fur, and teeth that evolution designed specifically to ruin everyone's day. It's got 6 legs, a head that's mostly mouth, and eyes that reflect Jake's helmet light like tiny orange coins. They stared at each other. Hey there, buddy, Jake says, which is definitely not in any official first contact protocol. Nice moon you got here. I'm just passing through. The Kragoth tilts its head. Its breath comes out in clouds that freeze instantly into tiny crystals. It takes a step forward. Jake takes a step back. This seems like a conversation they can have. So here's the thing, Jake continues, because apparently talking to massive predators is his coping mechanism now. I'm here for the cubs. The little ones, in the station. I'm guessing you know about them. The Kragoth makes a sound like a diesel engine clearing its throat. Right, yeah, you probably don't speak English. That's fair. But, see, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm just gonna grab those kids, wrap them up real nice, and get them somewhere warm. Then, everybody's happy. You get your cubs back, I get to not die. It's a win-win. Another step forward. Jake's hand instinctively goes to the plasma cutter on his belt, which would be approximately as useful as threatening a tank with a strongly worded letter. I'm also carrying protein bars, Jake adds. Chocolate flavor, probably taste like garbage to you, but they're organic. The Kragoth sniffs the air. Its ears, which Jake just now notices it has about 6 of, swivel independently like furry radar dishes. Then it does something Jake absolutely doesn't expect. It sits down, not attacking, not charging, just sitting there in the snow like a very large, very confused dog. Okay then, Jake says slowly. I'm gonna keep walking. You're gonna keep sitting. We're all gonna make good choices today. He edges around the Kragoth, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. It watches him with those orange eyes, tracking his every step. When he's about 20 meters past it, Jake lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The station is close now, another half kilometer. His core temperature is down 3 degrees and his fingers are starting to lose feeling despite the gloves. Behind him, the Kragoth is still sitting there, watching. This is fine, Jake mutters. This is totally fine. Just a pleasant winter stroll to rescue some cubs from certain death while their mom watches. Normal Tuesday stuff. The station's external airlock looms ahead, and Jake pulls out the access codes Thrick sent him. His hands are shaking, which he's going to blame entirely on the cold and not at all on the fact that he just had a staring contest with an apex predator and somehow didn't die. The code panel lights up. The airlock hisses open. Jake steps inside, and the Krogoth behind him stands up and starts following at a distance. Because of course it does. The research station smells like frozen metal, abandoned hope, and whatever scientists eat when they're studying things that want to eat them back. Jake's visor finally clears as he steps through the interior airlock, and the temperature jumps from instant death to merely prolonged suffering. The emergency lighting casts everything in red, which is either for visibility or to remind everyone that they're in a horror movie. Holding Bay 3, Jake mutters, checking the directory panel on the wall. Of course, it's on the far side of the facility. Why would anything be convenient? The station's dying. He can hear it in the way the life support systems wheeze and rattle, like an old man climbing stairs. The backup power's running on fumes and spite. Jake's internal countdown says he's got maybe 90 minutes before this whole place becomes a very expensive freezer. He follows the corridor, passing through labs full of equipment that probably cost more than his entire ship. There are terminals still running, displaying data that scrolls past in languages he doesn't recognize. Someone's coffee mug sits on a desk, contents frozen solid, a little ice mountain of regret. Holding Bay 3's door is sealed tight, and the panel next to it is flashing yellow, which in Universal Safety Color Code means this is a problem but not technically on fire yet. Jake punches in the access code. Nothing happens. He tries again. Still nothing. Of course, he says to nobody, of course the door's busted. This is where the plasma cutter comes in. Jake fires it up, and the tool hums to life with the kind of sound that says, I'm designed for controlled industrial use, not desperate rescue operations. He starts cutting through the doorframe, which is reinforced because apparently someone thought, let's make sure the deadly predators can't get out, but didn't think, maybe we should have a manual override for emergencies. The cutting takes 8 minutes, which feels like 8 hours. The whole time, Jake's aware that outside the station there's at least one adult Krogoth, possibly more, and they're probably wondering why this weird two-legged creature is breaking into the room where their babies are. The doors section falls inward with a crash that echoes through the empty station. Jake steps through, and 3 pairs of orange eyes stare at him from the darkness. The cubs are huddled in the corner, pressed together for warmth that isn't working anymore. They're small, relatively speaking, only about the size of large dogs. Their fur is matted with frost, and they're shivering so hard Jake can hear their teeth chattering from across the room. Hey there, kids, Jake says softly, crouching down. I'm here to help. The largest cub, which Jake mentally names Trouble, immediately tries to eat his face. It's not a serious attack, more like a "are you food test" bite, but those teeth are still very real and very sharp. Jake jerks back, loses his balance, and ends up on his butt while Trouble stands over him drooling. Okay, not food, got it, Jake says quickly. Friends. We're friends. I brought snacks. He fumbles in his pack and pulls out a protein bar. The cubs watch with the intensity of tiny apex predators who are really, really hungry. Jake tears open the wrapper and tosses it toward them. Trouble sniffs it, takes a tentative bite, makes a face that clearly communicates this is disgusting, then eats the whole thing anyway because beggars can't be choosers. The other 2 cubs, who Jake dubs Chaos and Disaster respectively, immediately swarm him for more protein bars. Within 30 seconds, he's distributed his entire supply and is now being climbed on by 3 juvenile Krogoth who have decided he's either their friend or an elaborate food delivery system. All right. That's all I got. Jake manages to stand up with Chaos attached to his leg like a very large, very cold burr. Now comes the fun part. He pulls out the emergency thermal blanket. The cubs watch suspiciously as Jake unfolds it, the silver material crinkling loudly in the quiet station. Disaster hisses at it. Trouble tries to bite it. Chaos continues clinging to Jake's leg. This is gonna keep you warm, Jake explains, knowing full well they don't understand him but finding the talking helps anyway. It's like a big shiny hug. Everyone loves big shiny hugs. Getting 3 frightened semi-frozen cubs who collectively weigh about 150 kilograms wrapped in a thermal blanket turns out to be exactly as difficult as it sounds. It involves a lot of wrestling, some creative folding, and at one point Jake ends up with all 3 cubs and himself tangled in the blanket like the galaxy's worst burrito. But he manages it. Eventually. The cubs are bundled together, secured with some cargo straps from his pack, looking like a very angry silver sausage with 6 orange eyes glaring out at him. Then the station's alarm starts blaring. Power core destabilization, announces a cheerful automated voice that definitely doesn't match the severity of the situation. Critical failure in 15 minutes. Please evacuate in an orderly fashion. Remember to take all personal belongings. 15 minutes? Jake stares at the ceiling. The estimate was 90 minutes. Estimates are subject to change based on catastrophic system failures and general bad luck, the voice continues. Have a nice day. Jake looks at the Cubs. The Cubs look at Jake. They seem to have reached an understanding that whatever happens next is going to be terrible, but at least they're terrible together. Okay, new plan. Jake assesses the situation with the kind of rapid problem-solving that humans are famous for, and other species find deeply concerning. The Cubs are too heavy to carry. The station's about to explode. And he's got 2 kilometers of frozen death between here and his ship. He spots a wall panel, the kind used for equipment storage. It's roughly the right size and shape. Jake rips it off the wall, finds some cable in a maintenance locker, and, in approximately 90 seconds, creates the galaxy's most improvised sled. Everyone on board, he announces, loading the Cubs onto the panel. They seem confused but cooperative, which is probably the best he's going to get. Jake starts dragging his makeshift sled back through the station. The Cubs weigh about as much as 3 people, and the panel's runners scrape against the floor with a sound like the universe's worst shopping cart. His shoulder immediately starts screaming in protest. He ignores it, because the alternative is everyone dies, and that's not really his style. The exterior airlock is ahead. Beyond it, 2 kilometers of ice and wind and cold that his suit's heating system has already given up fighting. Jake's core temperature is down 5 degrees now, and his hands have lost most of their feeling. 12 minutes until power core breach, the cheerful voice reminds him. Please exit quickly but safely. Mind the step. Jake cycles through the airlock, dragging the sled behind him. The cold hits like a wall made of knives and broken promises. The Cubs huddle deeper into their blanket burrito, and Jake starts pulling. The Kragoth is still there, waiting. It stands up when Jake emerges, and for a moment they stare at each other again. Jake's pulling a sled full of its Cubs across a frozen hellscape while a station explodes behind him. This is either the stupidest thing the Kragoth has ever seen, or maybe, just maybe, it understands what's happening. Jake points at the Cubs, then at his ship in the distance, then back at the Cubs. It's the most elaborate game of charades he's ever played, and the stakes are everyone's lives. The Kragoth tilts its head, sniffs the air, takes a step forward. "Look!" Jake says, breathing hard, his words coming out in frozen clouds. "I'm trying to save your kids. You want your kids saved, right? That's a universal thing. Doesn't matter if you're human or Kragoth or whatever. Kids shouldn't freeze to death because adults made bad choices." The Kragoth makes a sound, low and rumbling. Then it does something that Jake will later describe as, "the moment I realize the universe has a sense of humor." It moves behind the sled and starts pushing. "You're helping," Jake says, mostly to confirm he hasn't actually frozen to death and this isn't a hypothermia hallucination. You're actually helping. Together, a human cargo hauler and an apex predator that outweighs him by several hundred kilograms drag 3 Cubs across 2 kilometers of ice, while a research station explodes behind them in a very impressive fireball. That's definitely going to require paperwork. The rusty compass appears through the blowing snow like the most beautiful piece of junk Jake's ever seen. Gleep's already opened the cargo bay, because apparently he's been watching this whole disaster unfold and decided that miracles might actually happen today. Jake and his unlikely partner haul the sled up the cargo ramp. The Cubs tumble out of their blanket, shaking off frost and immediately investigating their new surroundings. The adult Kragoth follows them in, sniffs around the cargo hold like it's checking a hotel room, and then proceeds to den in the corner next to Jake's fertilizer shipment. "We have Kragoth in the cargo hold," Gleep announces, his eye stalks rigid with stress. "We have 4 Kragoth in the cargo hold. This is a cargo hold, not a zoo." "Temporary situation," Jake says, collapsing against the wall. His core temperature is back up to merely concerning instead of critical. His hands are thawing, which hurts worse than freezing did. "The Cubs are treating you like pack," Gleep observes as Trouble tries to climb into Jake's lap, which doesn't work because Trouble weighs about 50 kilograms. "You are aware of this, yes?" "I'm aware everything hurts and we're alive, so I'm calling it a win." Outside, through the cargo bay door that's still open, the research station finishes exploding. It's very cinematic. Jake makes a note to mention that in his report. Then he opens a communication channel to Commander Thrix, because some conversations are too good to pass up. Commander Thrick's face appears on the view screen, looking like someone just told him the laws of physics took a coffee break. His head feathers are doing that thing where they stick straight up in every direction, which Jake has learned means existential confusion. Captain Mercer, Thrick says slowly, my sensors indicate you are departing Frostfall 7 with biosignatures consistent with 3 juvenile Kragoth and 1 adult Kragoth aboard your vessel. Yeah, about that. Jake's currently trying to prevent Chaos from chewing on a power cable, while Trouble investigates whether the ship's control panel is edible. Mission successful. Cubs retrieved. Nobody died. You're welcome. That is impossible. The probability of success was 0.003%. Guess I got lucky. Luck does not account for... Thrick stops, his beak clicking rapidly. The adult Kragoth voluntarily boarded your ship. More like I convinced her we were on the same team. Teamwork makes the dream work, Thrix. There's a long pause where Thrix visibly recalibrates his entire understanding of reality. I see. Well, the Galactic Council will be pleased to learn that our strategic patience allowed for this outcome. Jake nearly spits out his coffee. Your strategic what now? Our decision to monitor the situation created the optimal window for intervention. Clearly our protocols were effective. You literally told me the Cubs were acceptable losses. A careful review of the recording will show I said their survival odds were negligible, not that we had abandoned hope. The Council's measured response demonstrated... I'm recording this, Jake interrupts, holding up his datapad, for posterity, and possibly blackmail. Thrick's feathers flatten immediately. That is unnecessary. Oh, I think it's very necessary. See, I've got footage of me dragging 3 Cubs across an ice moon with nothing but a blanket and poor decision-making skills, while you were busy filing paperwork about acceptable losses. I'm thinking the Galactic News Network would love this story. Captain Mercer, perhaps we can discuss this diplomatically. Perhaps you can update your reports to say, human did the thing we said was impossible, and we'll call it even. Scrix does something with his beak that might be their version of a grimace. Very well. Your actions will be noted in the official record, with appropriate recognition. Fantastic. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to figure out how to explain to my insurance company why I'm transporting 4 Kragoth in a cargo hold designed for fertilizer. Jake cuts the transmission before Thrix can respond. Behind him, the adult Kragoth has settled into the corner with her cubs piled around her like furry, toothy pillows. They're warming up. Their shivering finally stopped. The mother watches Jake with those orange eyes, and he swears there's something like gratitude there. Or maybe she's just planning the best way to eat him later. Hard to tell with apex predators. So, Gleep says from his station, all 7 eyes fixed on the Kragoth family, what is the plan for our passengers? Drop them at the nearest wildlife sanctuary that handles Kragoth. Should be one in the Kepler sector. It is 6 days out of our way. Ha! Yeah, well... Jake watches as disaster curls up against his boot, purring like a diesel engine. Can't exactly dump them out the airlock. You have adopted them in your mind already, I can tell. I have not adopted them. You are making that face, the human face that means you have emotionally bonded with something that could kill you. It's not a face, it's just my face. Trouble wanders over and headbutts Jake's leg affectionately, which would be cute if Trouble didn't weigh 50 kilograms and nearly knock him over. The adult Kragoth makes a low sound, and all 3 Cubs immediately return to her side. Bailey listened to her, Jake observes. That's good parenting. You are doing it again, the bonding thing. Shut up, Gleep. The rusty compass shudders as it breaks orbit, leaving Frostfall 7 behind. The cargo hold smells like wet Kragoth, which is not pleasant, but also not the worst thing Jake's hauled. The fertilizer shipment is going to be late, but honestly, the farmers can wait. Some things are more important than schedules. Gleep's personal log. Standard, galactic date, 7743-2. Today I watched my human employer do something that will haunt council risk assessment models for decades. He flew into a quarantine zone, rated certain death, walked 2 kilometers through temperatures that should have killed him in minutes, convinced an apex predator to help him rescue its young, and dragged 3 Cubs across a frozen moon while a research station exploded behind him. His equipment consisted of 1 thermal blanket, rated for the wrong climate, a plasma cutter, and what he called vibes. The Galactic Council estimated survival probability at 0.003%. Jake looked at those odds and said, quote, sounds like a challenge. This is why humans terrify the rest of the galaxy. Not because they are stronger or smarter or better armed, but because they will risk everything for creatures they have never met. Armed with nothing but improvised sleds and weaponized optimism, they see impossible odds as suggestions rather than limitations. Commander Thrix spent 47 minutes explaining why the rescue was impossible, using physics, statistics, and 3 different PowerPoint presentations. Jake responded by doing it anyway, and then recording Thrix's attempts to claim credit for strategic patience. The recording has already been shared 7,000 times on the galactic network. Humans call this going viral, which is terminology borrowed from disease transmission and somehow seems appropriate. We now have 4 Kragoth living in our cargo hold. The adult female has claimed the corner near the fertilizer as her den. The cubs have claimed everything else, including my fungi collection, Jake's spare boots, and what used to be our emergency rations. Jake says we will drop them at a sanctuary in 6 days. I have updated my employment contract to include hazard pay for spontaneous heroics. Jake is currently in the cargo hold, teaching the cubs to play fetch with a wrench. The adult Kragoth is watching with what I believe is either approval or confusion, possibly both. The cubs have decided Jake is part of their pack, which means they follow him everywhere and occasionally try to groom him by licking his head. He claims he has not adopted them. This is a lie. I have observed him for 2 years. I know his faces. This is his adoption face. The ship smells like wet Kragoth. My sensor array has logged 14 new concerning noises from the cargo hold. Jake's insurance premiums are going to be astronomical. And yet, somehow, we are all alive. 3 cubs who are supposed to freeze to death are wrestling in the corner. An adult Kragoth who should have killed us is napping peacefully next to 17 tons of synthetic fertilizer. I am updating my journal with the same conclusion I reach every week. Humans are the galaxy's most unpredictable species, not despite their emotions, but because of them. They will do mathematically inadvisable things for reasons that make no logical sense and somehow succeed through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept reality's limitations. Jake just received another distress beacon. It is from a mining colony with a trapped survey team. The rescue window is small. The odds are terrible. It is 3 weeks in the wrong direction. He is already plotting a course. This is why the handbook exists. This is why Chapter 12 is just "Why are they like this?" in 73 different fonts. I am requesting another raise. End log. In the cargo hold, Jake tosses the wrench again. Trouble catches it midair. Chaos tackles Trouble, and disaster somehow ends up with the wrench, despite being smallest. The adult Kragoth watches her cubs play, then looks at Jake with those orange eyes that might contain gratitude or hunger, or possibly both. Jake grins. Good kids you got there. The Kragoth makes a sound that could be agreement. Outside the viewport, stars stream past as the rusty compass heads toward the Kepler sector, carrying 17 tons of fertilizer, 1 exasperated alien, 4 Kragoth, and 1 human who looked at acceptable losses and said, "Not today." Somewhere in the galaxy, another distress beacon is waiting. And Jake's already listening.